Episode 131, Changing Self-Limiting Beliefs. Welcome to Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast, helping micropreneurs find your micro-influencer magic. I'm your host, Kandas Rodarte, and this week I'm joined by Judy Kane. Judy Kane, founder of Aligned Consciousness, helps people identify and release subconscious beliefs that keep them from repeating unhealthy, stressful patterns. The shifts her clients experience result in them finally achieving what they've longed to with ease and comfort. She is the author of Your Four Truths, How Beliefs Impact Your Life. Judy also hosts workshops and presents in group sessions, conferences, and podcasts. Originally from Richmond, Virginia, she lives near Tampa Bay, Florida, usually with a rescued cat or dog or two as part of her household. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
This is going to be a fun conversation because self-limiting beliefs are something that a lot of folks deal with, especially small business owners, solopreneurs, micropreneurs. So overcoming them is really the foundation to doing well in your business. So this is going to be a great conversation. All right, share your unique story. How'd you get to where you are?
Well, it started with decades in information technology management, which doesn't seem like a likely path to helping people rewrite subconscious beliefs, but that's where I started. And I did not have much exposure to what most people would consider alternative methods of helping people. I didn't disbelieve, just had not much exposure. But then I saw somebody help my former husband with an issue he had. And I was in the room with the process, which is the one I use. And I saw that it was something I could do. It didn't require me to interpret messages that nobody else could hear or sense energy that was floating around the room. It was a pretty straightforward process. And being an IT person, processes are good. So I was intrigued and I took a workshop and I got so excited about what I learned in the first workshop. I took every other workshop that they made available and I was really happy using it with myself and my family and willing friends until about 2014. And then I felt like I needed to share that with more people. So I started my business.
When did you write your book?
Last year. It came out in November of 2021.
So was it a pandemic project or did you already have it in your mind?
I did not have it in my mind. It was something I meditate in the morning and it was something that just kind of dropped in. It surprised me more than anything else, but it dropped in and things don't do that often. So I figured I'd better pay attention and do it.
If you get a prompting, you should act on it.
Yeah. So that's where it came from. And it's based on what I have seen with working with clients over the past 10 years.
So talk to me about the book. What's it called? Well, we know it's called Your Four Truths, but talk to me about the book. What can people learn from the book?
Well, it talks about the 4 areas where I've seen the most challenge in people's lives. And it's like, if you know that you are safe, it takes away a lot of the stress in your life. But many people are making choices in their life based on fear. It can be fear of success. It can be fear of failure. It can be a belief in scarcity. It can be a belief in, all sorts of fear-based types of beliefs. But it's about safety, basically. So if you know inside of yourself that you're safe, that's one big deal. Another one is knowing that you are worthy. Because so many people feel like they aren't good enough or they have to be something different than who they truly are to be effective, or it makes them uncomfortable speaking up because they don't think they've got something valuable to add to the conversation. There's lots of self-worth issues, but if you believe you're worthy, then that can, take care of a lot of those stressful situations that people experience. It means knowing that you are lovable, right? That's the third truth. And it starts with loving yourself. A lot of times people come to me for help with relationships. And one of the first things we do is look at the relationship you have with yourself. because if that's not solid, if you don't love who you truly are, not who you're pretending to be or who you think they want you to be, you don't have a good foundation for a relationship with anybody else. And the fourth one is feeling connected to others and the world at large, because we all are interrelated, right? What one person does impacts others. And if you're not aware of that, and if you don't feel that connection and the belonging that comes with recognizing that connection, you're kind of lost at sea. You're pretty much out there drifting around on your own. So those are the four truths in the book.
Let's talk about connection, because there's two arguments going around right now. One of them is that we're more connected than we've ever been, but nobody ever talks to each other. And the other is that we're not connected at all. In both of those cases, people are saying that we're not really connected. So how do you feel about technology and being connected in today's, hyper connected world?
I think technology has been a huge help during the pandemic. I know it's helped me stay in touch with people that I would have normally seen in person. I didn't have to change my business model at all. So it's definitely, if I had not had technology and had only been seeing patients in person, I would have been in sad shape from a business standpoint. But yeah, I think, maybe some of the issues around the connection isn't that we're not connected, but maybe we're not connecting in an authentic way. So we can have the conversations just like you could face to face. And if you are being authentic in those conversations, I think it's great. If it's just another way to avoid interacting with people, or to say things because you think that's what's expected at that moment in time, well, that's not helpful.
I saw somebody write somewhere, I hate that I can't remember where it came from, but a young person said that folks their age believe that it is more polite to send a text message rather than make a phone call, because the other person on the other end can answer on their own time. And I completely understand that completely. I don't like it when people leave me voicemails because, number one, I can never tell I have a voicemail. I'm 52 years old. I used to be really good at technology, but now I'm not. But I can't ever tell I have a voicemail, and then I end up missing a message because I didn't see that I had a voicemail message. I'd just rather you send me a text message. And it's that same, I want to connect with you, but I want you to connect with me on my terms.
Right. Well, I keep track of that with some of my networking people, because some people want to be talking on Messenger and Facebook, and others want the texts, and others never read emails. And so you kind of got to be aware of the best way to get in touch with people.
I attended a training, a networking training years ago, way before the pandemic. And the trainer taught this skill, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know if it's going to work now because so many people are doing online networking, but it was a great idea then. When they went to a networking event and they met someone new and the person gave them their business card, they would say, how do you prefer to be contacted? Do you want me to call you or email you? Or, how would you like me to follow up? And if they said, call me, he would fold one corner of the business card, and he would know that corner of the business card being folded down meant that he should call them, and email would be the other corner, and that was just a really great way for him to remember how to reach back to somebody. But it goes back to this. And Ivan Misner, you're a member of BNI. I don't know if you've ever heard the training that Ivan Misner did about connecting with people on their own level, but he talks about how he got a video game just so he can connect with his son on Steam, which is a way that people who play video games talk to each other, is Steam. It's an interactive thing. And his daughter likes WhatsApp, so he got WhatsApp so he could talk to his daughter. So you connect with people where they want to be connected with. It doesn't always work for everybody, but
it's nice to try and be aware at least.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But wouldn't it be nice if there's like this universal way people like to be talked to?
Well, when we all switch over to telepathy, I think that'll be solved.
Okay, I want to go back to something you said at the very beginning, where the modality that you use to shift, to shift beliefs isn't based on energy or heebie-jeebie stuff. It's based on a system. That's actually, you're the first person who's ever told me that, because whenever I've heard about these shifting limiting beliefs things, it's always been law of attraction or energy work, right? And energy is just this stuff floating around in the universe that causes, it's cause and effect, right? That's what energy is. So I just accepted that because I understood, matter, antimatter, energy, anti-energy. I understood that concept, but I can see where some folks would be put off by calling it energy, and so I like that you have this system in place. What's the foundation of the system?
It's called Psych-K, and it's been around since the 80s. And the goal of it is to get people into a place where they are what you call whole brained, where both halves of the brain are open to the thing you're trying to change in the subconscious. And so it's based more on, and everything is energy. Don't, for people who are going, what's the difference between energy work and, surgery? Well, I mean, it's all energy, but people do perceive it differently, right? And what I do is I don't have to interpret anything. So I guess that's my clarifying content. I just facilitate a process that helps people change the beliefs. But it's a very fast change process. You can usually change any one belief in less than 5 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
You know that that's really hard to swallow.
I know it is. And clients sometimes come in and say, it can't be this easy, because it's also not painful. It's like they might have some really tough stuff that they want to change, and we don't need to go back and dig through what that is. We just change what's there. So for people who might be suffering from trauma or other things that are just really painful to revisit, they don't have to with this process. But with phobia clients, I've never had a phobia client take up the full session. We'll take care of the phobia in usually like 15 or 20 minutes. And then it's like, so what else do you want to change? We've got the rest of the hour. Let's do something.
That's incredible. And it's just a process and a system. Is it like a process of elimination or?
No, but my IT background does help in trying to get my clients to get to be able to describe what it is they really want. It's because a lot of people know what they don't want, but they sometimes aren't as clear on what they do want.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like, any IT analyst or a architect or, anybody who's building something for somebody, you've got to get the requirements, right? You need to know what they want. and so, I have that skill from years of being in IT, and I can kind of like narrow things down. That's another skill set from my IT background, to help people get close to what it is they want. They get to decide, obviously, what it is they want their belief to be and how they want it to sound. But I can help them get there with those skills, maybe quicker than they'd get there on their own.
I believe that you've just nailed it. I mean, that most people don't really know what they want. They always say what they don't want. Well, I don't want this and I don't want that and I don't want this, but they don't know what they want. Do you think that that's a worldwide issue or just a North American issue?
Well, that's a good question. I have worked with people on at least 6 of the 7 continents. I am not aware of having worked with anybody in Antarctica, but I don't always know where they are, so it's possible. But the people I have worked with are all over the place from all sorts of different cultures. I have not noticed a trend being different from one culture to the next. They all have they all sometimes have difficulty figuring out what it is they really want.
So it's the human condition
I think it might be, yeah. Or at least the ones that come to me.
Okay, this is probably really nosy, and I've been on a don't be nosy kind of kick lately, but I'm going to be nosy right now. What is it that most people do want?
I see a lot of entrepreneurs. So a lot of them come because they're not having the success that they want in business. Now, I see a lot of people for other reasons too, but that is probably the predominant thing that I have people coming to me for. And interestingly, they equate that with making a certain amount of money. And so then we have to have the conversation about, well, what does the money mean to you? How is that going to make you feel? Because, having $1 million in your bank account is not necessarily going to give you the feeling that you're missing. And if you get there and you don't feel the thing you thought you were going to feel, then you just assume it was the wrong amount and it has to be higher, right? So there's no end to it.
Dig into that more. I mean, because that's a really important issue. Money is an issue that many, many people have.
Oh, and it's so complex, right? We get so many conflicting messages growing up, when everybody's messaging is different depending on what family they grew up in. But there is you don't want to have too much because you don't want to be like those people. You need to work really, really hard for everything that you earn. Money's the root of all evil, but you're not successful if you don't have the money. You don't want to be greedy. You don't, it's like all that stuff gets dumped into, you get most of your subconscious beliefs by the time you're 7. So all of this goes into most of them are there by then.
That's crazy.
And
that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. So, kids just absorb the rules of the family they end up in. That's just the way we're designed so that we have the best chance of success wherever we land. So all the safety beliefs, all the worthy beliefs, all those beliefs, you have to get them from the people you end up with, or it won't work very well for you.
So you're saying that if a kid is born into a family that doesn't provide a feeling of safety or worth, that you can help them 20, 30 years later.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lifetime of not feeling like you're good enough.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, was for people to understand how they get where they are and to know that they can change these things. It's not a life sentence. They can, you recognize it and then you find a way that works for you to get those changed.
Wow. That's pretty remarkable. But okay, let's get back to this money thing, because I think that is, for most small business owners, the fear of not having enough money or equating money with success really is self-sabotaging, which is your words, self-sabotaging. And I've always been the opposite of that. For me, it isn't about money that makes me successful. It's that I have freedom and time. And some people argue, well, you have freedom and time because you have enough money. But I've never looked at money as the reason why I have freedom and time. I've always looked at it as choices, right? The choices that I've made. And money has never really been important to me because I didn't equate it with my happiness. I'm getting personal here.
But it's how you got to where you are, right? If your subconscious wasn't in agreement with that, you would have different patterns in your life. And that's what happens. People can't ask their subconscious, well, how do you feel about this? All they can do is look at the patterns in their life and see that they've got conscious things they wanted to do that aren't happening for them. And there's resistance there, or there's, the self-sabotage, or there are things that come up that keep them from doing the things they want to do, or all their choices are driven by fear.
So for someone who's afraid right now because they don't think they have enough money, what advice can you offer?
That's a belief. And people have that scarcity belief about all sorts of things. It's not just money. It can be about time. It can be about the number of clients available out there. I'm in several coaches' packages where automatically their clients get a session with me, regardless. And many other coaches will send their clients to me as needed, but I'm in packages with some of them. And one of these coaches is a relationship coach. And one of her clients that came to me for their session, and this relationship coach, it was helping people find the love of their life. It wasn't for existing relationships that weren't working. And this woman had a very clear belief that there weren't any eligible men looking for long-term relationships in the city she lived in. Well, of course, she's not going to find them. She's not going to see them. She's not even, the vibration she is putting out there is totally, totally the opposite of being able to go out and find somebody that would be a suitable person for her to get to know.
For many, many years, I was told that I wasn't going to find the right mate, the right person, if I was looking, that I had to stop looking to find the right mate. And that seemed counterintuitive at the time. And from what you're saying right now, the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe the belief was, if I'm looking, I'm not going to find maybe that was the belief I had. If I'm looking for someone, I'm not going to find someone.
Mm-hmm. Or that it's really hard to find somebody, that you got to work really hard at it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that for entrepreneurs too, you've got to work 80 hours a week to be successful in your job, which means all of your other responsibilities are going to be shirked. So you've got this guilt thing. I've seen many clients who the fear of success in the subconscious was keeping them from being successful, because their subconscious thought that if they were successful, they would not have the time that they wanted to spend with their family.
I don't do this kind of work with my clients very often because I think it's counterproductive, but occasionally I'll have a coaching client, and I do marketing coaching, not life coaching, or it's marketing coaching, but I'll have a client who says that they want to make X amount of dollars. And then they say they want to work X amount of hours. And the hourly rate that they would have to charge if they were thinking hourly would the hours don't work, right? Mm-hmm. Or the rate that they want to charge is lower than the amount that they would earn if they charge that rate. And so in order to make the kind of money that you want to make, it's not just about limiting beliefs, it's also about logic.
Absolutely.
Putting the computer system together and doing the calculations. And I don't like doing that kind of work with people because I think that it is limiting. Like, I hate being told that I have to take an enneagram or a whatever those things are called, the disc profiles. I hate those things. I hate them. And the reason why I hate them is because I'm a D. I don't like being told what to do.
Right.
Because this is what I've learned over, and you're going to tell me that's a limiting belief, and you're probably right, but this is what I've learned over the 30 years that I have owned a business with my husband. Every time we decided that we wanted to do more of something, we would get more business from something else. But the cost, the money that we would earn would be the same. Right. And so maybe we just convinced ourselves that that's true. And so it became true.
You never know. I've had an awful lot of, like, almost everybody. I started checking. I used muscle testing to see what's in the subconscious. And so I've asked people if I could just check this one belief statement to see what their subconscious believes when they're talking about success goals. And almost everybody has a subconscious belief that it's not okay to have more money than you need. So it's so you can make more, but then something will take it away, or you get to that plateau and just can never seem to get past it. You have that equilibrium, but you're not gonna go higher than it, because the subconscious is saying, well, it's not okay to have more. Right? That's either greedy or selfish, or you don't want to be like those people, or, or it needs to be harder, or whatever it is. But yeah.
Can you muscle test without being in person?
Yeah. That's part of the process that we do with this.
So it's because I've been muscle tested in 2 occasions. One of them was on stage with Jack Canfield. It was really an interesting experience. And I'm just going to share this for the listener, because if you don't know what muscle testing is, well, you explain muscle testing and then I'll share my experience.
Okay. So if I were in the room with you and if I asked you to hold your arm out to the side and think of something you liked, and if I press lightly on your wrist, there would be a strong signal from your brain to your arm. Your arm would stay up even if I press lightly on your wrist. If I ask you to think of something you disliked, it's a blip in the signal. It's a weaker something, disconnects from that strong signal. And when I press lightly on the wrist goes down. Now, some people, you can barely tell it, and others, it's a big drop. It's just really weak. But that's how I do it if I'm with people. But I haven't seen clients in person since the pandemic, right? But I saw people virtually. Over half of my clients were virtual before the pandemic ever hit. With Psych-K, the process that I use, there is a way of doing the muscle testing for the client. So you can do it remotely and it works just as well. In fact, it works easier for me because I don't need to take the time in their session to explain how we're going to do it.
So my experience with Jack Canfield is I was on stage with him and he was doing a muscle test just to prove a point. And the point was that other people's positive feelings towards you or negative feelings towards you really do affect you. And so he muscle tested me with the audience throwing negative feelings at me. And of course, straight down it went. And then he muscle tested me with the audience throwing positive emotions, positive feelings towards me, and couldn't move at all, stiff as a board. It was crazy, and he told me not to think, right? You try not to think, just let the audience do it. So it even works when so the talking to plants thing, that's totally why plants, when you talk to them with love, that's why they grow better. It's the same thing with kids and animals. If you talk sweet to them, they're sweet. If you talk mean to them, they're mean. I mean, if you're constantly telling your dog that it's ugly and to get down and what a bad dog you are, you're going to have a bad dog.
Absolutely. Well, in the water, even the crystals with Dr. Emoto, all of those experiments. I mean, people
share that because I know about it very tertiary. So share it for the audience.
All right. Well, I might not have all the details correct, and I know there's a lot more to the story than I'm going to recall. But there was an experiment, and there's a group that continue these experiments, although this doctor is no longer here. But there was an experiment of people thinking positive thoughts and sending love to a glass of water, and sending nasty, hateful thoughts to another glass of water. And the crystals that formed in it, I can't remember if they froze it. It was something, but there was a visible difference when they looked at the physical attributes of the water. Beautiful crystals in the loved water, and really kind of strange, distorted looking crystals in the other. And they've continued to do these experiments over time, looking at all sorts of things that, plants that thrive, plants that don't. And it's just with thoughts. They're not doing anything physically different to the subjects of the experiments.
How fascinating. I wonder if that's why water in beautiful islands like Tahiti, the water is so gorgeous, because people love it when they're there. And there's this happy feeling when they're there. And icky water, people aren't feeling icky. I mean, that would be an interesting something to think about, because I live in a city called Muskegon, and Muskegon for 100 years was industrial. Like there was logging, and then when the logging went away, there was industry. And so they polluted the lake. The lake was completely polluted, and it was just you couldn't eat the fish out of it. You couldn't do anything out of it. And then the last 25 years, they cleaned up the lake, and now the lake is gorgeous. I mean, it looks like it. I didn't live here 25 years ago, but from pictures and what stories I've told, the lake has completely been transformed. They put love into it, effort and love.
Yeah.
And they stopped using the lake as a dumping ground, and they started using the lake to have fun and do fun things on it. People are kite surfing all the time. There's sailboats on the water. And it's not that big of a lake, but there's people on the water all the time doing fun stuff.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I'm sure the water's a lot happier with that.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Wow. I never really thought about that before, but it's true. And that goes back to the energy thing. I mean,
it does, and the connectedness, right? I mean, because the connectedness with my 4 truths, it's not just with people, it's connection to nature, to feeling part of something that's much bigger than yourself.
So going back to your 4 truths, I mean, you got to love yourself. You got to accept, you got to,
be safe, be worthy.
So
connected.
In terms of a solopreneur, a business owner, well, talk to me about experiences you've had. Can you share any case studies?
Oh, sure. I got stories about all sorts of things. Yeah, that's usually people's favorite part. So just to illustrate the impact of behaviors of people and, how that can impact children particularly. I saw this one woman who was in her 20s, and she was a manager in a retail store. And she had a lot of people have a fear of speaking in public. She could not even carry on a conversation and volunteer opinions on a conference call. This was way back before Zoom. And it wasn't even a video. It wasn't a video thing at all. It was just, a phone call between managers of this chain. They'd go over data once a week, and then they would talk about either ideas for improvement or troubleshooting stuff that wasn't working well. She could give the data over the phone, but she could not participate in any of the other conversations. She was just terrified to speak up. And she didn't really know why, but she knew it wasn't going to help her career if she couldn't participate a little bit better than that, right? And it turns out that she had, and she didn't know this at the time, but when it was like, well, when did this start? She suddenly realized the connection. And she said she was in 1st grade. She had been sitting there, and the teacher had asked a question. She hadn't raised her hand, but the teacher called on her anyway. She gave the best answer she could. The teacher made fun of the answer. That was it. 5 minutes in the life of a 6-year-old. And she had been terrified to speak up ever since. And it took, 10 minutes to change it.
Wow.
And I heard she went on to be a trainer for her company. So, I mean, it can be little things. It doesn't mean that somebody had a horrific childhood, when they got these fears. Of course it can, but it can. Yeah.
Every kindergarten teacher wants to be a kindergarten teacher because they love kids. And, she could have been the best teacher in the world and just had one bad moment. And that one bad moment impacted a woman's entire life.
Right. Or it could have even been, as, lovingly, jokingly meant, but just heard differently by that child. Right.
Yeah. And that's the what we hear and what people mean are never completely in alignment.
Right.
That scene from Dumb and Dumber, where the character says, what are my chances of you saying yes if I ask you out on a date? And the answer is 1,000,001. And the guy says, you mean there's a chance?
You're right.
1,000,001. You mean there's a chance? I mean, that's.
I'll go for those odds. Yeah. Funny.
But right now, when this episode drops, the prize could have already been awarded. But right now, the Powerball or the Mega Millions it hasn't been won yet, and it's up in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm like, should we buy it? Because we never buy tickets. Should we?
Right. Yeah. But one ticket, if the universe wants you to have it, right? All you need is one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even if it doesn't, but you know what? Prompting. That's a prompting. Because you thought about that book thing, and I'm thinking that's the second time that buying a lottery ticket has come up for me. I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket.
Well, I think you should, then it's like, well, what do you do with that? $100 million.
It's like $600 million or something. It's crazy. The number is crazy right now.
Wow.
I know exactly what I would do with it.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm going to get political here, but I know exactly what I would do with that. I would make sure that women have access to healthcare, the kind of healthcare they need.
Okay.
Regardless of whether or not male politicians think they need the healthcare that they need to have access to the healthcare that they need at the time that they need it.
So
that's what I would do with my money.
Your why, right? That is what the money would do for you.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think that's another thing that people who are afraid to make more money than they need have a problem with, is that they don't know what to do with the money that they don't need. And I look at the Bill Gates example, the Bill Gates example. His objective is to give away his billions. Like he donated $50 billion or something last week or 2 weeks ago. I mean, he's using his money for good, because he doesn't need, who needs $50 billion? Nobody needs $50 billion. No. So, some billionaires are making penis-shaped rockets, and some billionaires are using their money to help people. And $50 billion is a lot of mosquito nets. It's a lot of vaccines. It's a lot of food. It's a lot of resources, and it's going to help a lot of people. So that's the model that I would go for. If I had more money if I had an extraordinary amount of money over the amount of money that I could possibly ever spend, all that money would be spent helping people.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've ever read The Soul of Money, but by Lynn Twist, but in it, she talks a great deal about sufficiency. And, that's, unless there's that bigger goal, the sufficiency is what what makes you comfortable, where you have enough. Mm-hmm. And that's, her belief in that book is that, if we all had sufficiency, we would all be a lot happier.
So my grandfather was a milkman. He had flat feet or something, so he couldn't fight in the war. So he had an economics degree. He had been a featherweight boxer in college, but he became a milkman because it was, the Great Depression and then World War II. And so he never worked in economics. He was always a milkman, but he knew how to save. And because they lived during the Great Depression, he and his wife, who was my dad's stepmother, were very frugal, extremely frugal. So you never in a million years would have known how wealthy they really were, because they didn't live a wealthy lifestyle. But what they did do was, when they met somebody and they had this feeling that person was a good person with a good soul, they would just give them $5,000. So they would just, just randomly give somebody $5,000. And it's just this gift that, when you donate to a charity, you know that the money is going to be used for good if it's a good charity. But when you give $5,000 to somebody, that's going to change that person's, nowadays $5,000 isn't very much money, but back then $5,000 was a lot of money. Huge. Yeah. And they just would do that. And they lived very modest. They lived in a very small house. They traveled to Europe a lot. They did travel a lot, but they never, you could never from the outside tell that they had the kind of money that they could just give people, just they could just hand people money. And it was, I love those stories about people who carry around bags, envelopes of money, and just hand people envelopes of money. Because that's what they did. They didn't do it in envelopes, they wrote checks, but those are the kinds of people who silently change the world.
Absolutely. And I mean, your show is so much based about gratitude, being grateful. That's a two-sided thing. The people that got it, I'm sure, were just immensely relieved and grateful and surprised. But it also was doing something for your grandparents, right? Mm-hmm. The being able to do it has a real payback for the person doing mm-hmm. it as well. Mm-hmm. So that's just a win-win, right? But how mm-hmm. lovely. What a great story.
And I don't think we actually talk about that very much in my family. because they never did it for family. They did it for others. And so I think that the only reason I know about this is because my grandfather just happened to tell me in an offside conversation that I never even would have known that they did. I mean, we knew that they traveled, but they lived in a small house, very humble, never bought a new car, always very frugal. Whenever my grandmother Lucille would put the leftovers away, she would make sure that every single grain of rice went into that Tupperware bowl. They were but it was because they lived during the Depression.
Yeah.
They had
absolutely.
a different, they just had a different way of looking at it. And I think that there's we're talking about limiting beliefs. I think there's limiting beliefs that are generational based on circumstances. I remember the stories of my grandparents living during the Depression, and I also remember the stories of the good times, after things weren't so bad. My grandmother Lucille used to go to Cuba in the 50s before it became communist. She would share stories about all the scandalous things that she would do when she was, in her early 20s.
What fun.
Yeah,
what fun.
Actually, she would have been in her 30s in the 50s. Maybe it was the 40s. It wouldn't have been the 40s that she was going to Cuba. But yeah,
But they can be generational for sure. And many are, because we get them from our parents, right? Mm-hmm. So the fears that come along with scarcity that came out of the Depression, those could still be impacting children today, but 3 or 4 generations later. So
right now we're living in a very strange period of time because people think that we're going through a recession or that there's a depression coming, but they're still spending exorbitant amounts of money on junk, and so I always wondered about the amount of consumption that we do here in the United States. I mean, we just buy crap, and it's single-use crap that gets thrown away and never gets used again. And then we complain about not having any money. So where did that come from? Generationally, do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, I know that I've read not too far in the past, the mindset when plastic came out, that it was like lightweight and cheap to produce, and there were marketing advantages that were touted at the time. Of course, nobody thought about what do you do with it afterwards. But to your point of, I think the need to keep buying stuff is based on it's making it's a substitute for something else that people want. And so it's like anything else that you do too much of, right? It's when you're overdoing the consuming of whatever it is, it's filling a void that you're not meeting another way. So I don't know what I couldn't even hazard a guess as to why each person needs to buy more than they need or buy something that won't last. But it's filling a need for them, just like people who have addictions. It's filling some sort of a need for them. And if you can identify what that's providing for them, then it's a lot easier to help them switch over, to change that to something that's a healthier response.
And it's one person at a time. I mean, right now as a society, North America just consumes and consumes and consumes, but it's one person at a time.
Well, and we have this mindset here, particularly of, you're a better person, a more successful person, the more you can have, the more you can buy, the more you can consume. All that's, it's a status type of a thing also.
But then so they didn't have grandparents like mine that had money but didn't show it.
Right.
Yeah, it's that book. I've never read the book, but I've heard about this book, Millionaire Next Door, that you'd never know that your next door neighbor was a millionaire, and that's what my grandparents were. You'd never in a million years know that they were that wealthy because they lived.
But it probably has something to do with your relationship with money, where that's not driving you. Right. Mm-hmm. You're not equating it with the success. You want the freedom, you want the time, Those are the important resources to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It sounds like that's probably a family belief system.
My sisters are not like me at all.
Oh,
they like their money.
Okay. So maybe that's not true.
Sisters, if you're hearing this interview, it's true, but I apologize. Okay, so is there anything that I haven't asked you yet that you want to talk about?
Oh my goodness. No, because I could talk about this forever. I love what I do, and it's just so interesting to work with each person.
It is. So who would you like to be connected to?
Well, I really enjoy getting introduced to coaches. Like I say, I work with a lot of coaches helping their clients get past barriers to their coaching programs. I don't do coaching. I don't do behavior. I don't do strategy. I don't do accountability. All I do is help change the beliefs that keep people from being successful. And because it's a fast change process, I don't have clients that are, sign up for years on end. It's not that type of a relationship that I have with clients. So it's always good to make connections with coaches to see who I can help, how I can be a resource to them.
I love your business model.
Yeah.
Because I have also had a prompting to put together a coaching package that included your branding package, and that I wouldn't do that myself, that I would hire that out to someone else. So I completely understand why you would be an excellent asset to a life coach who, is working with people who have a limiting belief. And once you get past that limiting belief, then you can do the rest of the work. Right. It's a great business model. It's synergistic, and it's the way corporations work. So why can't solopreneurs work that way too? Get rid of that competition mindset, because you're not competition for a life coach.
No way. I'm not credentialed at anything. And, but that makes me more flexible, because I work with coaches that focus on all sorts of different areas, and I don't need to know the content, because that's not what I do.
Yeah. Now that I've said it out loud, I'm going to have to put together a coaching package that includes your branding, your brand pack, your logo, and your branding. I'm going to have to do that now, because I've said it out loud. So people, listener, if that's something that you're looking for, contact me, because you could be in the pilot program for that, which means pilot program means that your price would be lower than after I really launch it. So now that I've said it out loud, it's going to have to happen.
And that's such an important thing to have for marketing, to have all of your branding package together, right? Instead of piecemealing it as you go along and having it look, not consistent.
So you would get your logo, you'd get your brand colors, you'd get your fonts, and then you'd get coaching with me to put your marketing plan together and start your plan. You put your plan in place. That's a brilliant idea. And Judy Kane, I've been thinking about it, but you have lit the fire, Judy Kane.
Oh, good. I always like to light fires.
You have lit the fire. All right. So this is my favorite part of the interview, because it's about gratitude. So for whom or what are you most grateful? It's your moment of gratitude.
I am most grateful for having stumbled across the process I use, Psych-K, because it's made a huge difference in my life and in so many lives of the people that I've worked with. So I have a huge amount of gratitude for that moment, that those people that introduced it to me.
Thanks for joining us this week for Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast, helping micropreneurs find your micro influencer magic. Your time is valuable, and I am ever so grateful that you chose to spend your time with us today. Be sure to check the show notes at gratitudegeek.com, episode 131, for links to all the Groovy resources mentioned today, and of course, to connect with Judy Kane and to grab a copy of her book, Your Four Truths, and her website, Aligned Consciousness. You can also check her out on Facebook and LinkedIn. While you're at the website, be sure to subscribe to the show on Audible, iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast players. There's a link right there at the very top of the page that you can do that. Our theme music is track 14 by Rev Brock and So Lily. I've been your host, Kandas Rodarte. Join me on my mission to spread gratitude, sow seeds of appreciation, and harvest a bounty of generosity and kindness. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.